God's chosen ones. God hid this for a reason. You must hear it now. Have you ever wondered why your prayers seem to echo in silence while others appear to walk effortlessly into their blessings? Why you've been faithful for decades, yet feel more invisible now than ever before? Why God would allow you to carry such a heavy burden in the twilight of your life when you thought by now you'd finally have peace? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will shatter everything you thought you knew about divine timing. You didn't stumble upon this message. You've been summoned. There's a sacred reason why certain doors in your life stayed locked, why opportunities slipped through your fingers, why relationships ended just when you needed them most. You felt hidden, overlooked, even abandoned by the Almighty at times. But what if you were hidden, on purpose, like a letter sealed in ancient wax? You've been kept for a divine appointment. You've been a lighthouse hidden in the fog, but beloved, God is clearing the sky. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your best years are behind you, that your calling expired with your youth, that somehow, in your 70s, 80s, 90s, you've been put out to spiritual pasture. That is a lie from the pit of hell. What I'm about to reveal will not go viral. It wasn't meant to. This word is sacred. It's wrapped in fire, and it's specifically for you right here, right now, in this divine moment. You've always sensed something was coming. That stirring in your bones that wouldn't let you rest, that holy restlessness that whispered, "There's more." You just didn't know when. Now is the when. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single soul who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel forgotten in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your time, your attention, your faith, it all matters. If your spirit is stirring already, if something inside you just awakened, comment, "I hear you, Lord," right now. Let heaven hear your voice. Stay with me, beloved. What comes next will explain why your greatest battle has been in the waiting, and why your greatest victory is about to unfold. Why have you spent decades feeling like you're on the outside looking in? Why does it seem like God's favor rests on everyone except you? Why, after 70, 80, even 90 years of faithful service, do you still feel invisible to heaven itself? Dear one, what I'm about to share will revolutionize how you see every closed door, every delayed answer, every season where you felt forgotten by the Almighty. You haven't been overlooked. You've been strategically positioned. For the past 40, 50, 60 years, you've watched others receive their breakthroughs while you remained in the shadows. You've seen younger generations step into ministries, marriages, and miracles while you wondered if God had somehow misplaced your file. You've questioned whether your faithfulness even mattered anymore. But listen to me with every fiber of your being. You've been hidden for a reason, just like David, anointed as king but left tending sheep in the wilderness for years. Just like Moses, called to deliver a nation but exiled to the backside of a desert for 4 decades. Just like Jesus himself, buried in a tomb for 3 days while hell celebrated and heaven held its breath. God hides what he values most. He seals what's sacred. Think about this. When you store your most precious family heirlooms, do you leave them on the front porch? When you age the finest wine, do you expose it to harsh light? When you prepare a masterpiece, do you unveil it before it's complete? Never. You weren't being ignored, beloved. You were being insulated. Like fine wine aging in the perfect darkness of a cellar, time didn't disqualify you, it deepened you. Every year of waiting wasn't wasted, it was working. Every season of silence wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. The enemy has been whispering lies to your spirit, telling you that you've been shelved, that your moment has passed, that God moved on to younger vessels. But that serpent doesn't understand divine strategy. He doesn't comprehend sacred timing. What he sees as God's neglect is actually God's protection. Consider Ruth, a widow who thought her story was over. Consider Abraham, who received his greatest promise at 100 years old. Consider Anna, who prophesied over baby Jesus at 84, having waited her entire life for that moment. Their age wasn't a disqualification, it was their credential. You've been asking God, when will my time come? But heaven has been preparing to ask you, are you ready for yours? Every disappointment carved deeper character, every betrayal built stronger discernment. Every financial struggle forged unshakable faith. Every health battle produced supernatural resilience. You didn't just survive those decades, you were being refined by them. What God hides, He protects. And what He protects, He promotes in His perfect timing. Do you realize that while you felt forgotten, heaven was actually guarding you? Every door that slammed shut was divine intervention, protecting you from assignments that would have destroyed you. Every person who walked away was God removing contamination from your atmosphere. Every dream that seemed to die was actually being preserved until you had the wisdom to steward it correctly. The world celebrates the young and discards the seasoned. But God's economy operates in reverse. In His kingdom, the last become first, the weak become strong, and the hidden become highlighted at exactly the right moment. You've been wondering why your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling, why your breakthrough seems perpetually just around the corner, why others half your age are walking in the very blessings you've been believing for since they were in diapers. Here's the shocking truth. What you've called delay is actually divine disguise. God has been camouflaging your anointing, concealing your calling, masking your assignment until the perfect moment for maximum impact. You weren't meant to peak in your 30s or 40s. You were destined to explode in your golden years, when your wisdom could match your gifting, when your character could carry your calling, when your love could eclipse your ambition. Isaiah 46:4 declares, even to your old age and grey hairs, I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you. Notice God didn't say He would abandon you in your later years. He said He would rescue you in them. Right now, heaven is about to unveil what it has been carefully crafting in the secret place of your life. The same God who split the Red Sea with Moses' weathered hands, who brought down giants through David's aged wisdom, who birthed nations through Sarah's elderly womb, that same God is preparing to move through your seasoned vessel. If this word is already hitting somewhere deep, comment, "This is me," or type your age, because your journey matters. Your decades of faithfulness haven't been a dress rehearsal. They've been your qualification for what's coming next. But there's more. There's a specific reason God kept you quiet all these years, why He held back your voice when you had so much to say. And what I'm about to reveal next will explain why your greatest season of influence is not behind you, it's directly ahead of you. The enemy saw what you forgot. Beloved, let me tell you something that will rock you to your core. Your spiritual battles were never random. Hell doesn't attack what doesn't scare it. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on spiritual civilians. He reserves his heaviest artillery for those who carry heaven's blueprints in their DNA. Even in childhood you were marked. Do you remember feeling different? That strange sense that you didn't quite belong anywhere. The way other kids seemed to navigate life with ease, while you wrestled with thoughts too deep for your age. That wasn't a defect. That was divine selection. The devil saw your assignment before you even knew you had one. He witnessed the pre-birth conversation between you and the Almighty. He heard God whisper your name with intention, with purpose, with power. And in that moment, hell began its campaign against you. Think about it. Why do you think your life has been a series of battles that others never seemed to face? Why did betrayal find you more than blessing? Why did doors slam shut just when breakthrough seemed certain? Because the enemy recognized the weight of what you carry. He saw the generational curse-breaking anointing on your life. He witnessed the healing that would flow through your hands. He observed the wisdom that would pour from your lips in your golden years. Why the silence hurt so much? And that's why the silence hurt so much, isn't it? When everyone else seemed to be getting answers, and you were getting echoes. When your prayers felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling, while others testified of immediate breakthroughs, the enemy whispered, "See, God doesn't care about you." But beloved, that silence wasn't rejection, it was protection. God was allowing you to develop spiritual muscle in the gymnasium of unanswered prayer. Every betrayal that should have broken you instead built you. Every lonely night when you cried out to heaven was actually heaven downloading endurance into your spirit. Every closed door was God's way of saying, "Not yet, my child. What I have for you requires deeper roots." The Apostle Paul understood this warfare. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. Your struggles weren't just life happening. They were hell panicking because it recognized a weapon being forged. You thought you were losing, but you were learning. Every heartbreak taught you discernment. Every disappointment deepened your dependence on God. Every moment of feeling forgotten was actually God hiding you until you were ready for what He had prepared. Discernment is the hidden gift. And somewhere along the way, you started feeling things before they happened. You knew people's spirits before they spoke. You'd walk into rooms and sense the atmosphere shift. Family members called you too sensitive or overly dramatic, but you were neither. You were spiritually alert. This is your hidden gift, chosen one. While others see with their eyes, you see with your spirit. While others hear words, you hear intentions. This discernment that others dismissed as paranoia is actually prophetic insight that hell fears and heaven treasures. Remember Elisha? In 2 Kings chapter 6, he could hear the enemy's secret war plans from miles away. The king of Syria thought he had a spy in his camp, but Elisha was simply operating in supernatural awareness. "None, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words that you speak in your bedchamber." That's you, beloved. You've been hearing in the spirit what others miss in the natural. You've been sensing spiritual ambushes before they manifest. You've been feeling the weight of intercession for people you've never met. This isn't mental illness. This is spiritual intelligence. You felt that job wasn't right for you, even though it looked perfect on paper. You sensed something off about that relationship, even though everyone said you were being picky. You knew that investment would fail, even though the numbers looked promising. That wasn't anxiety. That was anointing. You were never weird. You were wired for warfare. Listen to me carefully. You were never weird. You were wired for warfare. Every spiritual battle you've endured, every attack you've survived, every moment you thought you might not make it through, all of it was boot camp for this moment. God has been training you in the dark so you could fight in the light. He's been developing your spiritual muscles in private so you could carry spiritual weight in public. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was using every assault to forge you into a spiritual weapon that hell cannot handle. Your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's warfare technology. Your tears weren't signs of defeat. They were intercession that moved heaven. Your isolation wasn't abandonment. It was intensive training in the presence of God. And now, at 70, 80, 90 years young, you're not too old for God to use. You're perfectly seasoned. You're spiritually mature. You've been through hell and came out with heaven's perspective. You've been tested and proven faithful. You've been refined and approved for divine deployment. The church needs your wisdom. Your family needs your prayers. Your community needs your insight. This generation needs your testimony of God's faithfulness through decades of warfare. Pause right now and comment, "Marked and still standing," if you've survived spiritual warfare people don't even know about. Let heaven hear your declaration. Let hell know you're still here, still fighting, still believing. Because chosen one, everything you've endured was preparation for what's coming next. The enemy's greatest mistake was believing your warfare would break you. Instead, it built you. And now you're about to discover why God needed you battle-tested for the assignment He's about to release. Listen to me, dear one. You've been waiting for a sign, haven't you? scanning the horizon for some grand announcement from heaven. But what if I told you that the very fact you're sitting here right now, watching this message, is your sign? Your calling was whispered, not announced. You've been wondering why your assignment never came with fanfare, why there were no crowds cheering when God whispered your purpose into your spirit, why you felt overlooked while others seemed to step into their callings with applause and recognition. Here's the sacred truth. Some assignments are too holy for microphones. That's why nobody clapped. It wasn't meant to be loud. It was meant to be real. Think about it. When God called Moses, he was alone in the wilderness, tending sheep. When he called Gideon, he was hiding in a winepress. When he called David, he was in the fields, forgotten by his own father. The most powerful callings in Scripture happened in quiet places, away from the crowd, away from the noise. Why? Because God doesn't need an audience to validate what he's already ordained. You see, the enemy fears public callings because they're easy to attack. But he trembles at whispered assignments because he can't touch what he can't hear. Your calling was given in the secret place because it was meant to be protected, not paraded. For 50, 60, 70 years, you've been carrying something that felt too big for words, something that made you different, something that separated you from the crowd, even when you tried to fit in. That wasn't isolation, beloved. That was consecration. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set apart, not set aside. There's a profound difference. Heaven's scrolls are opening. Right now, in this very moment, something is shifting in the heavenly realms. There is a scroll with your name on it, written before the foundation of the world, and it's being unsealed. Not tomorrow, not next year. Now. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest, that quickening in your spirit. That's not your imagination, that's divine recognition. Your soul is remembering what heaven never forgot. Isaiah 49:2 says, "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." You've been hidden in God's quiver, chosen one, shaped, sharpened, and prepared for such a time as this. The very trials that made you question your worth were actually God's way of preparing you for your assignment. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every rejection built your resilience. Every closed door led you closer to the one marked with your name. You thought you were being punished, but you were being positioned. The pain was the preparation. Let me ask you something that might sting. What if every person who walked away from you was actually a divine removal? What if every opportunity that fell through was God protecting you from a path that would have derailed your destiny? You cried over betrayals that were actually barriers. You mourned losses that were actually blessings in disguise. You fought to keep doors open that God was trying to shut for your protection. That friend who abandoned you when you needed them most, they would have poisoned your purpose. That promotion you didn't get, it would have promoted you right out of God's will. That relationship that ended so painfully, it would have ended your calling. God's love is so fierce that he'll let you hate the process if it means you'll love the product. He'll let you question his methods if it means you'll trust his heart. Here's what's been happening while you've been wondering if God forgot you. He's been removing every person, every opportunity, every distraction that couldn't handle the weight of what he's about to release through you. 1 Peter 2-9 reminds us, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." You weren't buried, you were planted, and now you're about to bloom in front of those who thought you were finished. Do you understand what this means? Every season of hiddenness was preparation. Every moment of feeling forgotten was actually God keeping you safe until the appointed time. You've been in the womb of purpose, and now heaven is declaring, it's time to be born. The world looked at your age and wrote you off. The enemy whispered that your time had passed. But God has been saving the best wine for last. He's been reserving his most powerful move for the final act. You thought your story was ending, but God's about to prove it was just the intermission. Your calling isn't diminished by your age, it's dignified by it. Your wrinkles are wisdom marks, your scars are credentials. Your years of waiting weren't wasted, they were your training ground. The assignment God has for you can only be carried by someone who's been where you've been, survived what you've survived, and learned what you've learned. Your pain was never punishment. It was preparation for the platform He's about to give you. If you know deep down this message was sent from heaven, if something in your spirit just shifted, if you recognize your story in these words, then say it. Say it out loud. Say it in the comments. I receive it. I'm ready. Write it. Own it. Because what happens next will prove that God's not done with you. In fact, He's just getting started. Beloved, I need to tell you something that might sting, but it could save your destiny. The reason some of your prayers feel stuck in midair isn't because God stopped listening. It's because you've been speaking too soon. Premature exposure is dangerous. You've been announcing what should have stayed sealed, posting visions that needed more time in the prayer closet, sharing dreams with people who were never meant to carry the weight of your calling. And every premature revelation becomes an open invitation for spiritual warfare you weren't prepared to fight. Think about Joseph. That 17-year-old boy had a legitimate vision from the Almighty. Genesis 37:5-8 tells us he dreamed that his brothers' sheaves would bow down to his. But Joseph made one critical mistake. He told them too early. "Listen to this dream I had," he said, practically broadcasting his divine download to people who weren't spiritually mature enough to handle it. What happened next? They threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. Why? Because premature exposure invited jealousy, manipulation, and outright sabotage. Joseph's dream was real, but his timing was reckless. How many of you have been living in your own pit because you revealed God's plan before God said go? How many doors slammed shut because you gave the enemy a blueprint of what heaven was building in your life? The silence you're experiencing now isn't punishment, it's protection. God is pulling you back into the secret place because what He's about to release through you is too precious to be exposed to the wrong eyes at the wrong time. Obedience over opportunity. Here's where most people miss it completely. You've been chasing opportunities when God is looking for obedience. You've mistaken curiosity for covenant. People ask you questions about your future, your plans, your next move, and you think their interest means they're assigned to walk with you. But listen carefully. Not everyone who's curious about your calling is called to carry it with you. God doesn't bless ambition, He blesses alignment. And right now, He's asking you to align with His timing, not your timeline. Some of you have been frustrated because you're ready to move, ready to speak, ready to step into what God showed you. But ready doesn't mean released. There's a difference between having a word and having the wisdom to know when to speak it. Moses had a burning heart for justice when he killed that Egyptian. But it wasn't God's timing. It took 40 years in the wilderness before he was ready to lead a nation out of bondage. David was anointed king as a teenager, but he didn't touch the throne for 15 years. During those years, he could have forced his way into power. He had opportunities to kill Saul and take what was rightfully his. But David understood something profound. Premature promotion becomes permanent pressure. When you step into position before your character can carry the weight, you don't just risk failure. You risk becoming a casualty of your own calling. You are in a 7-day shift. But here's the word that's going to shift everything for you right now. You are standing at your Jericho moment. Just like Joshua and the children of Israel, you've been circling the same mountain, facing the same walls, fighting the same battles. But God is saying this is your 7th day. Joshua 6:15-16 tells us that on the 7th day they rose early at dawn and marched around the city 7 times. And when they shouted, the walls came tumbling down, not because they worked harder, but because they waited for the right moment to release what God had already prepared. This moment you're in right now is prophetic. Don't scroll past a command from heaven because it came through a YouTube video instead of a burning bush. God uses whatever vessel is willing to carry his voice. You've been in preparation mode for so long that you've forgotten you were being prepared for something. But that stirring in your spirit, that restlessness in your bones, that's not anxiety, that's anticipation. Heaven is about to release what it's been protecting. The walls that have been blocking your breakthrough aren't meant to keep you out forever. They were meant to keep you safe until you were ready to handle what's on the other side. You're standing at the Jordan. Right now, you're standing at the Jordan River, just like the children of Israel. The promised land is on the other side, but somebody has to be willing to step into the water first. Joshua 3:15-16 tells us that as soon as the priest's feet touched the water, the river stopped flowing and the people crossed over on dry ground. But here's the urgent word I need you to hear. If you don't move now, someone else will finish what you were chosen to carry. God's purposes will be fulfilled with or without you. The question is, will you be the one who steps into the calling, or will you watch from the sidelines as someone else walks in the blessing that had your name on it? The delay is over. The preparation season is ending. This is your moment to move from the wilderness into the promised land. But it requires one thing from you, the courage to take the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. Write down today's date. Mark it. Say aloud, no more delay. Heaven is listening, and your obedience is about to unlock what your waiting has protected. The question is no longer when, it's will you. When God says now, no one can stop it. Listen to me, dear soul. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when heaven stops whispering and starts declaring, when the Almighty moves from behind-the-scenes preparation to front and center manifestation. And when that moment arrives, no force in hell, no opinion from man, no limitation from your past can hold back what God has ordained. You've been waiting 70, 80, maybe 90 years for this moment. You've watched others get promoted while you got pushed aside. You've seen doors slam in your face while they swung wide for people half your age with half your wisdom. But what you didn't know is that every closed door wasn't rejection, it was divine redirection. Every delay wasn't denial, it was preparation for a revelation so powerful that when it comes, the world will have no choice but to acknowledge the hand of the Almighty on your life. Isaiah 60:1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." This isn't poetry, beloved. This is prophecy. Your light isn't coming, it has come. The glory isn't approaching, it's rising upon you right now, in this very moment. But here's what will shock you. When God says now, the very people who ignored you will suddenly see you. The doors that were locked will burst open without you even knocking. The resources you need will flow to you like rivers in the desert. Because when heaven moves, earth has no choice but to respond. When he lifts the veil, it won't be to get approval. It'll be for vindication. You've spent decades trying to prove yourself worthy, haven't you? Explaining your calling to people who couldn't understand it, defending your dreams to those who never caught the vision, seeking validation from voices that were never meant to affirm you. But God is about to lift a veil that will silence every critic and answer every question. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his face shone so brightly that the Israelites couldn't look at him. Exodus 34:29, -30. He didn't have to announce his encounter with God. His countenance declared it. That's what's happening to you right now. The glory you've been carrying in secret is about to become visible. The anointing you've been nurturing in silence is about to speak louder than words ever could. This unveiling won't be for your ego, it'll be for your vindication. Every person who whispered you were finished will see you flourishing. Every voice that said your time was over will witness your time beginning. Because when God vindicates, he doesn't just restore, he elevates beyond what was ever lost. You were created to carry glory, not gimmicks. The world has tried to convince you that significance comes from social media followers, from trending topics, from viral moments that last 15 minutes and disappear. But you, chosen one, were built for something far more substantial. You were created to carry glory, the very presence of God, not gimmicks that fade with the next news cycle. At your age, while others are chasing fleeting fame, you're being entrusted with eternal influence. While they're building platforms, you're being given purpose. While they're seeking spotlight, you're being filled with supernatural light that no camera can capture and no stage can contain. 1 Peter 4:14 says, "If you are reproached for the name of Christ, blessed are you, for the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you." The weight you've been carrying isn't burden, it's glory. The heaviness in your spirit isn't depression, it's the presence of God settling on you like a mantle, preparing you for an assignment that will echo through eternity. You're not here to trend, you're here to transform. Not to go viral, but to be vital. Not to get likes, but to change lives. The depth in your eyes, the wisdom in your words, the authority in your prayers, these aren't accidents. They're the fingerprints of God preparing you for your greatest chapter. Legacy is calling you by name. Every morning you wake up is a divine appointment. Every breath you take is heaven's investment in something bigger than you've imagined. You're not in your sunset years, beloved. You're in your assignment years. The very thing you thought disqualified you, your age, is actually your greatest qualification. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver Israel. Abraham was 75 when God promised him nations. Anna was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your authorization. You've been through enough to be trusted with weight. You've endured enough to handle pressure. You've learned enough to carry wisdom that can shift generations. Psalm 92:14 declares, "They shall still bear fruit in old age, they shall be fresh and flourishing." This isn't consolation, it's confirmation. Your most fruitful season isn't behind you, it's before you. The world may see wrinkles, but God sees wisdom. They may see limitations, but He sees legacy. Your grandchildren need to see that God's power doesn't diminish with age, it deepens. Your community needs to witness that divine purpose doesn't retire at 65. It just reaches full maturity. Legacy is calling you by name, and it sounds like thunder rolling across the heavens, declaring that your story is far from over. You're not finished, you're being revealed. And when heaven reveals it, hell can't reverse it. This is your moment of unveiling. Not tomorrow, not next year, but right now. The veil that has hidden your true calling is being pulled back. The season of preparation is ending. The season of manifestation is beginning. And when God reveals what He has been developing in secret, no demon in hell, no force on earth, no limitation in your mind can stop it. You thought you were getting older. God says you're getting bolder. You thought you were slowing down. He says you're powering up. You thought your best days were memories. He says your greatest days are calling your name. The revelation is here, the vindication is now, and your legacy starts today. Beloved, I need you to understand something that will transform how you see this season of your life. The veil is lifting right now. As I speak these words, heaven is pulling back the curtain on a mystery that's been hidden for decades. You thought God forgot about you. You thought your prime was behind you. You've been sitting in what feels like a spiritual retirement home, watching younger generations run the race while you wonder if your number will ever be called again. But what if I told you that everything you've endured, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every door that slammed shut in your face was not abandonment? What if it was preparation? Listen to me carefully. You are not breaking, you are birthing. Every ache in your bones, every weight in your spirit, every moment you felt ready to give up that wasn't God's rejection, that was gestation. You've been in the womb of purpose. And beloved, your delivery date has arrived. The tomb wasn't a dead end, it was a launch pad. Think about Lazarus, 4 days dead. Martha said, "Lord, by this time there's a stench." But Jesus didn't come to manage the smell. He came to demonstrate resurrection power. "Lazarus, come forth," and death itself had to surrender. Here's what shocks me about your story: you're still breathing. After everything hell threw at you, you're still here. That's not coincidence. That's covenant. God preserved you through decades of warfare because He knew this moment was coming, this divine appointment, this holy confrontation with your destiny. You've been asking God, when? He's been saying, I'm preparing you for now. But here's where it gets dangerous. The enemy knows your time is at hand. He's been working overtime to convince you that age disqualifies you, that your season passed, that somehow, at 75, 85, 95, you've been benched by the Almighty. That is spiritual malpractice, and I will not stand for it. Moses was 80 when God called him to deliver a nation. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah. God doesn't operate by social security standards. He operates by sacred standards. Your wrinkles are not disqualifications, they're credentials. Every line on your face tells a story of survival. Every gray hair is a trophy of endurance. You didn't live this long to fade quietly into the background. You lived this long to finish strong. Isaiah 46:4 declares, "Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am He who will sustain you. I have made you, and I will carry you. I will sustain you, and I will rescue you." Did you catch that? Even to your old age. Not despite your old age. Even to. As if God was saying, I've been saving the best wine for last. The isolation you've experienced wasn't punishment, it was preparation. God pulled you away from the noise, away from the crowd, away from people who couldn't handle the weight of what He was building inside you. You thought you were being put on a shelf. You were being placed in a sacred sanctuary. Think about it. A master sculptor doesn't carve in the marketplace. He works in solitude, away from the crowd, where every strike of the chisel can be precise, purposeful, powerful. You've been in the master's workshop, and the masterpiece is almost complete. But here's what I need you to understand. What you've been preparing for isn't just a calling, it's a confrontation with destiny itself. The reason your spirit has been restless, the reason sleep eludes you, the reason you feel this holy urgency rising in your chest, it's because heaven is about to collide with earth through your obedience. And that kind of divine collision requires preparation that most people can't handle. You've been wondering why God allowed certain relationships to end, why He permitted financial struggles, why He let you walk through valleys that seemed endless. Here's why. He was removing everything that would compete with His voice in this hour. Every person who walked away, they weren't meant to witness what's coming. Every door that closed, it was protecting what's about to open. Every delay was divine timing perfecting itself for this moment. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Your season isn't ending, it's beginning. The world sees decline. God sees destiny. The world sees retirement. God sees recruitment. The world sees your sunset. God sees your sunrise. But I need to warn you, this next phase will require everything you've learned, every lesson from every valley, every ounce of faith you've accumulated, because what God is about to release through you will shake foundations, break generational curses, and establish legacies that outlive your natural life. Are you ready for the weight of that responsibility? Are you prepared for the opposition that comes with divine assignment? Because what's coming next will separate the curious from the called, the wishful from the willing. The veil is lifting, beloved. The mystery is being revealed. Your time is now. But the question that will determine everything is this: will you step into what heaven has prepared, or will you let fear convince you that you're too old, too tired, too late? Because what I'm about to show you next will prove that God's greatest moves often come through His most seasoned vessels. God will now, Confront what confronted you. Beloved, I need you to understand something that will rock you to your core. That rejection you faced wasn't random. It wasn't just bad timing or wrong circumstances. The pattern of doors slamming in your face, opportunities vanishing, people walking away when you needed them most, that wasn't accidental. It was ancestral. You see, there's been a generational assignment against your bloodline, a spiritual contract written in darkness decades before you were even born. Your grandfather faced it, your mother battled it, and now it's your turn. But here's what the enemy never counted on. You're not just another victim in the cycle. You're the breaker. Think about it. Why have you always felt different? Why have you carried burdens that seemed too heavy for one person? Why have you endured seasons of isolation that would have destroyed lesser souls? Because you weren't just living your life, dear one. You were absorbing the accumulated spiritual warfare of generations. Every tear you cried wasn't just for your pain. It was breaking chains that held your entire family tree captive. The Bible tells us in Exodus 20:5 that the sins of the fathers visit the children to the third and fourth generation. But what religion never taught you is this: the blessings of the faithful also compound. And you, chosen one, you've been appointed as the generational blessing that breaks every curse that came before you. Why the spiritually wounded are the most dangerous. Now listen carefully. The enemy made a critical mistake when he wounded you. He thought injury would weaken you. But wounded warriors walk differently than untested soldiers. They don't fight for applause, they fight from remembrance. You remember the nights when God was your only companion. You remember when His presence was more real than the people who abandoned you. You remember the miracles that happened in your darkest hour, when no human could have orchestrated such divine intervention. That remembrance, beloved, that's not just memory, that's ammunition. David understood this. When he faced Goliath, he didn't just see a giant. He remembered the lion, the bear, the moments when God's deliverance was undeniable. He declared in 1 Samuel 17:37, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Your scars aren't signs of weakness, they're credentials. Every wound the enemy inflicted was creating a weapon he couldn't see. You've been forged in fire that would have consumed others. You've survived spiritual attacks that would have left others spiritually deceased. And now you carry an authority that can only be earned through divine partnership in suffering. The enemy thought he was destroying you, but God was developing you. Every betrayal increased your discernment. Every loss deepened your dependence on Him. Every moment of abandonment taught you that when everyone else walks away, the Almighty draws closer. Your spirit has been in court this whole time. Here's what's going to blow your mind. While you thought you were forgotten, your spirit has been in court. Not the court of human opinion, but the supreme court of heaven. And every prayer you whispered in desperation, every tear that fell in silence, every cry that seemed to echo in emptiness, they weren't ignored. Revelation 5-8 reveals something magnificent. The prayers of the saints are kept in golden bowls before the throne. Your prayers didn't evaporate, they were collected, like evidence in a cosmic trial. Every injustice you endured, every promise that was broken to you, every time you were overlooked or undervalued, heaven kept the receipts. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a divine court session happening on your behalf. The accuser is being silenced. The verdicts of men are being overturned. The delays that felt like denials are being revealed as divine delays that protected you from lesser blessings. You thought you were fighting alone, but you've had the greatest legal team in the universe working your case. The Holy Spirit has been your advocate, Jesus Christ your attorney, and God the Father your judge. And the verdict is about to be rendered. Your tears weren't emotional. They were evidence, and heaven kept the receipts. Every night you cried yourself to sleep wasn't just grief. It was testimony. Every moment you felt crushed wasn't just pressure. It was the divine process of turning coal into diamonds. Every season you felt buried wasn't abandonment, you were being planted. The enemy presented his case. Look how they've fallen. Look how they've been rejected. Surely God has forgotten them. But heaven's response thunders through eternity. Look how they've remained faithful. Look how they've continued to believe when belief made no sense. Look how they've praised in the prison. This one is mine. If this is stirring something deeper than words, if you feel the courtroom of heaven shifting on your behalf, type, I'm not who I used to be. Because, beloved, you're not. You're no longer the victim of circumstances. You're the victor of a divine verdict. You're no longer waiting on a breakthrough. You're walking in one. The confrontation is over. The verdict is in. And heaven is about to enforce the judgment that's been written in your favor since before the foundation of the world. What you're about to walk into isn't just vindication. It's divine validation that your waiting wasn't wasted, your tears weren't meaningless, and your faith wasn't foolish. Get ready, chosen one. The show of heaven's power in your life is about to begin. You know what hurts the most? It's not the physical pain that comes with age. It's not even the loneliness that settles in like winter fog. It's the crushing weight of feeling like you became invisible while you were still breathing. One day, you were needed. Your phone rang. People sought your advice. You had purpose, direction, a seat at the table. Then somewhere along the way, the world moved on without you. Your children got busy with their own lives. Your friends started passing away. Your opinions became outdated. Your stories became repetitions. And you started wondering, did God forget about me too? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. People forgot you, but God hid you. There's a difference between being forgotten and being hidden. When someone forgets you, it's an accident. When God hides you, it's intentional, it's strategic, it's sacred. You've been living in what I call the shadow years. Those chapters of life where you feel like you're existing in the margins of everyone else's story, where your voice gets quieter while the world gets louder, where you watch from the sidelines while others step into what looks like their moment. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The most powerful stories in the Bible are not the loudest ones. They're the ones whispered in the shadows. They're the ones written in silence, forged in secret, refined in the wilderness when no one was watching. Think about Jesus himself. We know about his birth. We know about his death and resurrection. But what about those 18 missing years between age 12 and 30? Where was the Messiah? What was he doing? The Son of God himself had hidden chapters. Even Jesus had shadow years. Do you think those years were wasted? Do you think God made a mistake by keeping the Savior of the world in obscurity for nearly 2 decades? Of course not. He was being prepared. He was being shaped. He was learning the rhythm of his Father's heart in silence before he would speak it to the world. Your shadow years weren't punishment. They were preparation. While others were building their kingdoms, you were being broken down so God could build something eternal through you. While others were collecting applause, you were collecting scars that would become credentials. While others were gaining followers, you were losing everything that could distract you from your true calling. You didn't miss your moment. You were becoming it. The world measures success by how fast you rise, how loud you speak, how many people know your name. But God measures success by how deep your roots go, how pure your motives become, how ready you are to carry the weight of what he wants to entrust to you. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. He was 80 years old when his real ministry began. 80. By today's standards, he should have been in a nursing home, not leading a revolution. But God doesn't retire his chosen ones. He refines them. David was anointed as king when he was just a teenager, but he didn't sit on the throne until he was 30. Those years of running, hiding in caves, being hunted by Saul, those weren't detours from his destiny. They were the classroom where he learned to trust God's protection when there was nowhere else to turn. Your hidden years taught you things that success never could. You learned that God shows up in the valley, not just on the mountaintop. You discovered that his strength is made perfect in weakness. You found out that when man abandons you, God draws closer. The isolation you felt, it was incubation. The silence you endured, it was God's way of getting your attention without the distractions. The doors that closed, they were protecting you from paths that would have led you away from your true purpose. You've been asking God why he allowed you to become invisible. But what if he made you invisible to the world so you could become visible to him? What if he pulled you out of the spotlight so you could step into his presence? What if the reason people stopped calling is because God wanted to be the only voice you heard? Abraham was 75 when God called him to leave everything he knew and follow a promise he couldn't see. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to Isaac. Caleb was 85 when he asked for a mountain to conquer. Anna, the prophetess, was 84 when she recognized baby Jesus as the Messiah. God doesn't have a retirement plan for his chosen ones. He has a refinement process. You've been hidden because what God is about to do through you requires character that can only be forged in secret. It requires wisdom that can only come from years of depending on him alone. It requires humility that can only be developed when the world stops praising you and you have to find your worth in God alone. The shadow years weren't about becoming nothing. They were about becoming everything God needed you to be for what comes next. Right now, as I speak these words, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. The season of hiding is coming to an end. The years of preparation are giving way to years of purpose. God is about to unveil what he's been working on in secret. But first, he needs to know you, understand the weight of what you carry. He needs to know that the applause of men won't corrupt what he's entrusted to you. He needs to know that you've learned to find your identity in his voice, not the world's opinion. Type your age right now in the comments and declare, God's not done with me, because beloved, he's not. Your greatest chapter is not behind you. It's being written right now, in this moment, as heaven prepares to reveal what it's been protecting. But why now? Why is God calling you out of the shadows at this stage of your life? The answer will leave you breathless. Beloved, we need to talk about something that church won't tell you. Something your family doesn't want to face. Something hell is desperately trying to hide from you. There's a battle over your becoming. Right now, as you sit here breathing, there's a war raging in the heavenlies over your destiny. But here's what's going to shock you. The enemy isn't fighting your past anymore. He's not wasting ammunition on what you've already done wrong. No, he's throwing everything he's got at your next step. Why? Because hell has seen the blueprint heaven drew for your final act, and it terrifies them. You thought your battles would get easier as you got older, didn't you? You thought by 70, 80, 90 the warfare would quiet down, but instead it's intensified. The attacks on your health, your peace, your family, they're not random, they're strategic. The devil knows something about your remaining years that you're just beginning to discover. He knows that Moses didn't just wander in the wilderness for 40 years. He was being prepared to lead a nation out of bondage at age 80. He knows that Abraham didn't just get old, he fathered the promise at 100. And he knows that you, chosen one, are not winding down. You're about to break open. Listen to me carefully. Every delay you've endured, every door that slammed shut, every dream that seemed to die, it wasn't God punishing you. It was God positioning you. Because what's about to be birthed through you is so powerful, so anointed, so disruptive to darkness that it required decades of preparation. Why your bloodline ends with you. Now I'm going to tell you something that might sting, but it's going to set you free. Look at your family tree. Look at the patterns. The addictions, the poverty, the broken marriages, the unfulfilled dreams, the spiritual emptiness that has haunted generation after generation. You've watched it destroy your parents, you've seen it grip your siblings, you've fought it in your own children, and you've wondered, God, when does this cycle break? The answer is staring back at you in the mirror. You are the no more. You are the it stops here. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. The reason your life has been so hard, so marked by struggle, is because you're the generational terminator. You're the one appointed to break chains that have held your bloodline captive for centuries. Joshua 24:15 declares, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That wasn't just a nice Sunday school verse. That was a declaration of war against every generational curse that tried to follow him. You think you're too old to matter? Sarah laughed when God told her she'd birth nations at 90, but her laughter turned to legacy. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized Jesus in the temple. Her decades of waiting weren't wasted. They were invested for that one divine moment. The dysfunction stops with you. The spiritual poverty ends with you. The cycle of defeat, disappointment, and despair, it dies when you say, "Not on my watch, not in my bloodline, not anymore." You are God's divine disruption. Let me paint you a picture that will shake you to your core. You are not just another senior citizen collecting Social Security and watching the news. You are an earthquake in a land of sleeping spirits. While the world thinks you're retiring, heaven is saying you're just getting started. While society sees you as yesterday's news, God sees you as tomorrow's breakthrough. You've been walking around thinking you missed your moment, haven't you? Thinking your prime was in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. But what if I told you that everything until now was just rehearsal? What if your real performance, your main act, is about to begin? Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." He didn't ask for a rocking chair. He didn't request an easy retirement. He demanded the biggest, most impossible fight left on the battlefield. And God said, "Now you're talking my language." You've been called not to fit in with a world that worships youth and dismisses wisdom. You've been called to fracture what has kept others bound, to shake what can be shaken, to speak life where death has reigned. The church has been putting you out to pasture, but God has been grooming you for war. Your gray hair isn't a sign of decline, it's a crown of glory. Your wrinkles aren't marks of defeat. They're battle scars that prove you've survived every weapon formed against you. Proverbs 20:29 says, "The glory of young men is their strength, gray hair the splendor of the old." Your splendor isn't behind you, it's radiating from you right now. Every year you've lived, every tear you've cried, every battle you fought, it was all preparing you for this moment, this divine disruption, this holy earthquake that's about to split open the ground of impossibility and birth miracles that will leave hell speechless. You are not the end of your story. You are the exclamation point. You are not the sunset. You are the supernova. The bloodline that tried to bury you doesn't understand that you weren't planted to stay down. You were planted to grow up. And what's about to spring forth from your life is going to shock everyone who counted you out. So I'm asking you right now, are you ready to stop living like a victim of your circumstances and start walking like the victor God designed you to be? Drop this below like a spiritual sword. I am the answer my bloodline prayed for. Because, beloved, the line has been drawn, and you, with all your years, all your scars, all your wisdom, you are heaven's divine response. Beloved, we've walked through the wilderness together. We've uncovered why God kept you hidden, why your voice was silenced, why your dreams seemed delayed decade after decade. But now we arrive at the moment heaven has been orchestrating since before you drew your first breath. God can trust you now with visibility because you no longer need it. Do you understand the profound shift that just happened in your spirit? For 70, 80, 90 years you've been screaming to be seen, desperate for recognition, arcing for someone, anyone, to validate your worth. But that desperation, that hunger for human approval, it died in the desert. It was crucified in your crisis. And what rose from those ashes was something the enemy never saw coming. A person who no longer needs the crowd's applause because you've heard heaven's standing ovation. Think about Moses. At 80 years old, 80. When most men are settling into their rocking chairs, God appeared in a burning bush. Not when Moses was young and hungry for glory. Not when he was strong and ambitious, but when he was broken, humbled, stripped of every earthly confidence. Why? Because God doesn't anoint the impressive. He anoints the surrendered. But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" Exodus 3:11. Moses wasn't fishing for compliments. He genuinely believed his moment had passed. Sound familiar? You've been telling yourself the same lie. I'm too old. I'm too broken. I've missed my window. But what if your brokenness wasn't your disqualification? What if it was your graduation? You're not rising to be seen. You're rising to be sent. There's a massive difference between those two callings, and understanding it will change everything. The young rise to be seen. They chase platforms, followers, fame. But you, seasoned warrior, you're rising to be sent. Sent with authority that only comes from surviving hell and still choosing to praise God. Sent with wisdom that can only be forged in the furnace of real loss. Sent with a message that cuts through the noise because it's been tested in the trenches. When Jesus sent out the 12 disciples, he didn't send them with seminary degrees or social media followers. He sent them with power. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Matthew 10:8. What have you freely received in your decades of walking with God? Healing from heartbreak that should have destroyed you. Provision when your bank account read zero. Peace in storms that capsized others. Strength to bury spouses, children, dreams and still wake up praising His name. That's not just testimony. That's transferable anointing. Your healing was never just for you. Now listen carefully, because this might be the most important thing you hear today. Every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every time you chose faith over fear, none of it was wasted. None of it was just for you. Your depression wasn't just about your healing. It was about understanding the language of broken hearts so you could speak life into someone else's darkness. Your financial ruin wasn't just about your restoration. It was about learning how to trust God with nothing so you could teach others how to find everything in Him. Your loneliness wasn't just about your companionship. It was about becoming comfortable in the secret place so you could introduce others to the God who never leaves. Romans 8:28 doesn't say all things work together for good for those who love God. It says they work together for good for those who are called according to His purpose. Your pain had a purpose. Your struggle had a strategy. Your healing has a mission attached to it. Joseph didn't endure slavery and imprisonment just so he could become second in command of Egypt. He endured it so he could save nations from famine. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. How many lives is your story destined to save? You are the safe place someone else is about to step into. Right now, somewhere in your city, there's a woman sitting in her kitchen at 3 a.m., wondering if she can make it through another day of caring for her husband with dementia. There's a man in his 60s who just buried his wife of 40 years and doesn't know how to cook a meal or pay a bill. There's a grandmother raising her grandchildren because addiction stole their parents, and she's exhausted beyond words. They don't need another young preacher with perfect teeth telling them to just have faith. They need you. They need someone who's walked their exact path and came out singing. They need someone whose wrinkles are proof of battles won, whose gray hair is evidence of wisdom earned, whose gentle voice carries the authority of survival. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. 2 Corinthians 1-3-4. You are the safe place. You are the warm embrace. You are the living proof that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And your morning has arrived. You are not the remnant. You are the revelation. The world looks at you and sees outdated, irrelevant, past your prime. But heaven sees the secret weapon they never saw coming. You're not what's left over from a dying generation. You are the reveal, the unveiling, the manifestation of what happens when someone refuses to quit on God, even when God seems to quit on them. Even when I am old and grey, do not forsake me, my God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your mighty acts to all who are to come. Psalm 71-18. This is your moment, not your farewell tour, but your debut, the main event. Everything before was just rehearsal. Write this down in your journal or in the comments. I am ready for the revealing. Heaven, I say yes. Because, beloved, your hiding is over. Your preparation is complete. And the world is about to witness what God can do with a life that's been refined by fire and aged in grace. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to hold these truths close to your heart. You were never forgotten. You were never overlooked. You were never too old, too broken, or too late. You were hidden on purpose, refined with intention, and prepared for such a time as this. Remember this, your silence was not rejection, it was protection. Your delays were not denials, they were divine strategy. Your pain was not punishment, it was preparation for the calling that's now awakening in your spirit. God has been orchestrating every detail of your story, every tear, every triumph, every setback and comeback, weaving them into a tapestry of purpose that only heaven could design. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses at 80, who gave Sarah a child at 90, who called Samuel in his old age, that same God is calling you now. You are not alone in this, never alone. Right now, across this nation, there are thousands of seasoned saints just like you, hearing this same call, feeling this same stirring. We are a generation that has weathered every storm, survived every attack, and we're still here, still standing, still believing. Together, we form a mighty army of prayer warriors, wisdom carriers, and light bearers. This community, our community, stands ready to pray with you, to encourage you, to remind you of who you are. When the enemy whispers you're nobody, we see you, God sees you, and your story matters more than you know. Let me ask you this. If God has brought you this far, through everything you've endured, don't you think He has something beautiful planned for what's ahead? Can you trust Him one more time? Can you say yes to the calling that's stirring in your bones? If this message has touched your heart, if something inside you has awakened, I want you to share it in the comments. Tell us what God is speaking to you. Ask for prayer. Share your story. Remind someone else that they're not alone. Let this be more than a video. Let it be the beginning of a movement of mighty saints stepping into their final assignment. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. That widow down the street, that man in your church who's been struggling, that friend who thinks their best days are behind them. You might be the vessel God uses to deliver this word exactly when they need it most. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for listening with your spirit, for daring to believe that God still has plans for you. If this ministry has blessed you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and join our family of faithful warriors. Together, we're changing the narrative about what it means to age in the kingdom. Now, before you go, let me pray over you. Close your eyes if you can. Let these words wash over your soul. Heavenly Father, I come before you now lifting up every precious saint who has heard this word today. Lord, you see them sitting in their living rooms, lying in their beds, perhaps feeling forgotten by the world, but never forgotten by you. Father, I ask you to place your mighty hand upon their shoulders right now. Let them feel your presence, your love, your unchanging faithfulness. Remind them that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, that their steps are ordered by you, and that their latter days will be greater than their former days. God, heal their broken hearts, mend their wounded spirits, restore their hope, renew their strength like the eagles. Give them beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Lord, open doors that no man can shut. Bring divine connections, divine appointments, divine opportunities. Let their latter rain be greater than their former rain.